So our next speaker is Professor Amarakeerthi.
Reverend and my colleagues, fellow writers and invitees. Now, since I am a writer, represented in this volume, it's a bit difficult for me to represent the book because in Sinhala literary culture is so vibrant. Contemporary Sinhala literary culture is vibrant in terms of ideas, styles, forms, genres, ideological positions that we take. It's quite wide, different, diverse. So even though I happen to be included in the volume, I don't want to represent the contemporary Sinhala literary culture all by myself. The book does that actually quite wonderfully. I want to thank, obviously, Dr. Madhubhashini Disanayake Ratnayake. She has been translating these things for a while now, and translation is quite meticulous work, painful, painstaking work. And she has this sense of courage and also sense of humility. Some of you might have already heard that she is addressing some of us Sinhala writers, sir. I just heard Keerthi Valisarage, sir, Ilapparachi, sir. She's English professor, right? I'm not yet professor, she is going to be professor, I mean. So she can kind of like look down upon us. Say, you are Sinhala writers. You Sinhala literature is not very great. Still, I have this, compassion. I'm going to take you to the world. That kind of attitude. She never had that attitude, and we had very close conversations with things that she translated. And here, I want to make one short comment about the book. I couldn't finish it even though the book has been with me for a few months. Louis Borges, he has these enigmatic statements. They are quite beautiful, beautiful one-liners he always has. He once said, translator has to translate not what the writer has said, but what the writer wanted to say. You see, very enigmatic. So it's a beautiful idea. So we have written our stories, but as the translator's task is to translate what we wanted to say, not necessarily what we have said. That means translator has to bring in her own creativity, literary sensibilities in the process of translation. And our translator, being a writer herself, has all that quality, that imaginary literary sensibility and imaginative power to understand others' work and render that into a different language. That involves a great deal of self-sacrifice. I must thank you. She's a writer, award-winning writer herself. She could have spent that time to write her own novels, short fiction, instead of translating us into English. Previous speakers and Professor Sasanka Pereira kind of hinted or indicated the fact that many Sinhala writers wanted to be translated into English. Quite frankly, I don't. I have to make that because I write to carry out or build the conversation with the reading public here in Sinhala. That's one reason, actually. For me, writing in Sinhala is a kind of choice. It's a choice. I have chosen to write in that language to write about things that I find interesting and, to use the literary genres that I write in, novels, short fictions, to engage in a conversation that I think important in our times. If those literary works, my work, has something to be translated, is quite different thing. And I like to see them in English. I like to see them read everywhere in the world. But my primary focus, intention, is to have that rich conversation with Sinhala readers in my community. I think to say that is not a kind of being arrogant in saying that. I'm not being arrogant in saying that. Another thing I want to highlight is that this collection, Dr. Disanayake Ratnayake is a very shrewd person. She is very shrewd in using the publishing industry's little niches and opportunities for our advantage. This collection is a thematic collection. It is about war and resistance, that kind of. She used that thematic banner to introduce us, take us to the world. Perhaps that is not the best way to, take Sinhala literature to the publishing industry elsewhere. But she used that initial opportunity and made the breakthrough. You see, this is not a collection of short stories translated as a kind of work of literature intended to be read by general readers. And plus, this publication is quite expensive. General reader in anywhere in the world cannot really read this except in a library. This is some 190 pounds, yeah. Only libraries can buy it. So therefore, this is very specific volume. Dr. Disanayake Ratnayake used that opportunity. I hope it will open up doors for other kinds of general publications, especially paperbacks, small volume paperbacks in Sinhala. Sinhala literature, I don't want to argue with Professor Sasanko Pereira. I tend to disagree with some of the points he made about the research and the seriousness of Sinhala writing, especially the background research. So I myself have made the comment that historical novelists in Sinhala don't do enough background research. I made that argument in public, say compared to Amitav Ghosh. I compared it in Ghosh's historical novels. But look, being in this country, in Sri Lanka, where this history is always contested, debated about, these intense debates about history, ethnicity, and everything, we almost don't need any more research. That the history is the big part of our very existence. But it doesn't mean that getting your fact right is not necessary. It is very much needed. I agree with actually Mr. Ilya Parachi when he said that our phenomenological issues of our own community, can these issues, the way we deal with those issues, can they be translated into a different language and read by other publics? But still, there might be difficulty of that at the level of our existence. But I think Sinhala literature is now, as actually Sumati beautifully mentioned about Prabhat's story, Ricken and Ajit Tilaksena's stories, compared to the world literature. So my main field is comparative literature. I'm fairly well read in that area. I can safely argue that contemporary Sinhala literature is actually not all that bad. That can be easily translated into that literature. It deserves to be translated and read everywhere in the world. Not necessarily as, compendiums of facts about this island called Sri Lanka. When you read literature coming out of this little small unknown country, readers tend to read them as kind of sources of information. How Buddhism happens in Sri Lanka, how ethnicity happens in Sri Lanka. Just a glean piece of information from stories. That's a very bad way of reading literature. Sinhala literature is now rich enough to read as literature, and get the pleasure and also see how human life, how some eternal, universal human issues are dealt with by Sinhala people or Sri Lankans in general. You know what? I will stop here. One thing, last thing though. This particular collection has stories that can resist this very idea of what I like to call freezing of identity. Let me explain it a little bit. We have in everywhere in the world, in a time where this clash of civilization argument is very much still alive, people tend to freeze other people into some chosen identity. Muslim is this, Tamil is this, Sinhalaness is this. We put them into little boxes, rigid definitions. We freeze them into the identities that we have chosen for them. In this stories in this compendium, the collection, challenge that idea. Say that living in Sri Lanka has all kinds of subtle cultural connections, ethnic connections. Our life is connected. Sinhala person's life is connected in multiple ways with other people. They live in Sri Lanka and elsewhere in the world. One of the things, thematic point that I saw in the book, that, all those stories and excerpts from the novel say that the life in this little island, rather unknown for most of the English readers elsewhere, but the life is so cosmopolitan, connected, that life is nurtured by so many sources of wisdom, knowledge, taste, and beauty. I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kirthi.